Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of The New Standard. And joining me, as always, to my left, I have my partner in crime, Neil Coulong. What's happening, Neil?
I'm enjoying another aftermath of the game, Lance. Seems to get worse and worse. It's a dream that we can't wake up from. Steelers football is in about as bad of shape I think we've seen it. Probably in 2013 they were 0-4. I'd put this on that level pretty easily. In some ways, I might even say it was worse. But it's bad, and I'm just kind of going over that and getting prepared to work as I usually do late into Sunday, dealing with stuff around the NFL Wire network. And while I enjoy that, it definitely is a lot more fun when the Steelers actually win a game,
Yeah,
or at
it
least
is.
compete, which they don't do anymore. So,
It is. It is. And I think I've trained myself, now that I'm, 51 years of age, I've kind of trained myself to try not to be as disappointed after losses. I try to remove myself from it emotionally to a certain extent. But it is much better, and it's much more fun to do this program when they are winning. The tone of the program is better. It's more positive. There's more energy. It's just better. But I've also come to realize, being 51, that this is part of the process. You are not preordained to win every year. It is not the right of the Steelers. It's something that has to be earned. And right now, they're not playing good enough football. But before we jump into the thoughts of the game, I want to give a big shout out to all the sponsors of the show. Cali Baba. You can go to calibaba.com. Great Dads versus Everybody. Shop Supreme Queen. Assist the Score. Check out the UK Steelers podcast, Steelers Landing, and check out the new program from Steelers Chat. Also, if you want to listen to the show via podcast platform, it is on all platforms. So whatever platform you go to get your podcast, do a search for the New Standard. You will find it, and you will also find out. You can find the show on YouTube by doing a search for the New Standard with my name, Lance Williams, or Neil Coulong, or both, and you'll find the program. But when I was looking at this game, it felt about, I just thought of missed opportunities. That there were a lot of missed opportunities on this game offensively. But before I go into that, I do want to say, come on, CBS. Why? I mean, I understand the rules and stuff like that, but gee, Manise, I had to watch an overtime game of the Jets and Titans. So the one positive play offensively where Ben looked frisky and a little bit young, I missed because I was watching an overtime game of the Titans and the Jets. Why don't you describe that play? And why don't you describe just overall how the offense looked? Because I have a follow-up question. How the offense looked in the first quarter, and what does that say about the plan that they came into with this game, the offensive plan, the game plan, and does it say anything to you about where this offense could go moving forward?
where it could go. Straight in the dung heap is where it can go. I mean, it was the first play. Let's stay with this. It was really exciting. They were looking pretty good. Let's say this generally too. I thought Najee Harris played a really good game. He played a big boy game today. He looked much more decisive and powerful running the ball. He got the ball and ran forward hard, regardless of who was there. I want to give him a thumbs up for this game more than anything else. And it looked like that early on. First carry, he took it 10 yards, I think. I had a legitimate bet with people whether the Steelers would get a first down on their first drive of the game. That's how bad it's been. And they got to about midfield, and it was really crazy to see them at the opponent's 50-yard line to start off a game. And Ben got pretty good protection. He dropped back. He had to move a little bit to create a little bit more space. And the Packers had put Jair Alexander on Deontay Johnson on the right side, the offensive right side. And Johnson got behind him. Ben hit him with a real nice throw. Johnson made a nice move to get underneath and around Alexander, made the play and scored a touchdown. It was crazy. It's been forever since we've seen them score a touchdown on an opening drive, even in the first quarter. I mean, it was fun. It was exciting. I think they got a stop on the next drive. By the time you all tuned in, though, it went downhill. Literally, CBS kicked the feed in for the rest of the country, and the Packers scored like 7 seconds later, and that was it.
Yeah.
So good work, Lance. I'm blaming you for that.
Yeah, my dad said it was our fault. He said it was
I
our
know
fault.
it wasn't mine. I saw the good things. I saw the good plays.
He
I don't know what you guys were doing.
He said it was our fault. Do you think from that start that they had is that something that they could build on? Because when I look at this game, it's about missed opportunities to me. And I have to ask the question. We didn't want to title the program "Is Big Ben washed or is he just rinsed?" Because I think there's a difference between washed and rinsed. I think washed is you don't have any. Washed is Dan Marino at the end. That's washed up. Rinsed is he's good enough to keep himself healthy, make a play here or there. They probably do not win. And he just kind of rides off into the sunset. Not Y.A. Tittle ish, but just, he's just a diminished player. So he's rinsed. And so they just kind of ride off into the sunset. Washed also, for me, signifies they have to go in another direction immediately. That's washed. So I don't think he's there. I think he's rinsed, but there's a problem with the missed throws. I think it's what you said last week. I don't know if he's seeing ghosts or if he has the yips. His feet don't look settled in the pocket. He doesn't look like he trusts his protection. And I don't think he should. And I think his mechanics are just off. And that's why he's missing some things. Those throws that he missed in this game, unfortunately, in terms of missed opportunities, had he made those throws, this is a much more competitive game. I'm not going to say they win, but I think Ben is rinsed. I'm not necessarily washed. I think he's definitely rinsed, though.
Okay, I didn't understand what you meant by rinsed and washed. Given those definitions, and I hear what you're saying. I understand it. Thinking about it more after you said it, Ben's washed. I don't understand how you could think he's anything other than that. He was god awful today. He was really bad. It's coming in the comments already. I think Melvin's so excited to talk about this. He's commented the same thing a couple times already. He was terrible today. The throws he missed were not, you can't miss those as an NFL quarterback. And you know what the thing is? He had time today. They protected him today. He had the ability to make throws down the field. He just missed everything. At one point, he almost hit a cameraman on a ball that was much more competitive for that guy with a 50-pound piece of equipment on his shoulder than it was for Deontay Johnson. He missed Juju twice, and I don't think it was – I think it might have been a little bit of hyperbole by Tony Romo saying those were both touchdown catches. One of them, I think, had a decent shot at it. The other one, probably a okay shot. Those were big plays that they left on the field. And I guarantee you, whenever Ben speaks to the media, that's what he's going to say. I did this. It wasn't my best game. It's on me, blah, 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 blah. He can't do it. I'm sorry. It's just, I don't want to see it either. And believe me, nobody wants to see Mason Rudolph out on the field any less than I do. But whatever they do, it's irrelevant to the point that Ben Roethlisberger is not going to be a successful quarterback in the NFL over the next 13 games. He's just not. He had the opportunity to do that today. He could have. He didn't. He's done. You're not going to get anything more from him. I still don't think Mason Rudolph is going to give you anything better, but I don't think it's all that far off before Ben gets an injury, and that's going to be kind of the end of it. They're going to give him every opportunity to want to get back in, but he looks worse and worse every week. He's a fighter. I love that about him. I wish he had it. But this is why they say that this is a boxing term, probably more than anything else. You have to protect people from themselves sometimes. And I really think that that's the point that Ben is at. Of course, he wants to go out there and play. They're going to make him take him off the field. I love that about him. But if I'm the guy in charge right now, I'm probably taking him off the field because he could not really have played worse today than he did. And I think he's going to get hurt eventually. It's just he looks terrible. He can't move. He can't throw. There's not really anything that he can do. And it's sad. It's unfortunate, but that's the point that he's at.
The reason I love doing the show with you, Neil, is you keep it 100. I mean, you keep it absolutely 100. You do not mince it, and I love that. And you provide a perspective that a lot of our listeners don't get to hear, particularly from people in the media and people who have been behind closed doors, so to speak. If we look at this forward, because and watching Ben play, that offensive line is very inconsistent in pass protection. I don't think he has the ability to protect himself. The other thing with Ben is that last throw in the cover too was just a terrible throw. He throws that right in the coverage, and there's a pick. And even Tony Romo, who likes to protect quarterbacks, even just said, "Look, that's a bad read." hit Ben's
I
mental
would say he
game.
was covering up for Ben a lot in
Yes,
that
he
game,
was
to be
today.
honest.
Yes, he
He
was.
muffled
Yes,
a
he was
lot.
today.
By the end of it, he wasn't, but he saw a lot of bad stuff in that game. There's no way he missed
Yes, he
that.
did. Yes, he did. And he tried to cover it up. Let's go down to let's walk this down. Let's walk this forward. Ben's washed. I'm gonna say rinsed, but I really wanted to say washed. I wanted you to say washed because you're gonna say it better than I could say it.
I said
But
washed.
but
I'm still saying washed.
you
Still
said
right
wash,
on washed.
acid wash,
Spin cycle of washing. That's where we
spit
are.
cycle, acid washed, whatever it is. So let's just say, and if you guys are young, you may not know that term. Neil probably is still old enough to know what acid wash jeans were.
I have older siblings. I have older
Okay,
siblings. I
that
found it out from them, but no.
okay, that had acid wash jeans. Okay, so acid wash jeans. Look it up. If you're young, acid wash jeans were the rage in the 80s. We had ripped jeans in the 80s that were acid washed and tapered and all that stuff. But walk us behind the curtain, Neil. How does this work? If he gets benched, how does this decision happen? Is this a decision between Ben? Is this the ownership? Is this Colbert? Is this Tomlin? Is this a meeting of the minds of all the power players in the organization coming together to say, okay, Ben, we're going to bench you? Because I can't imagine he's going to get sandbagged or surprised by this. And I would imagine that he's part of this decision because they don't want to embarrass him at this point.
No, definitely not. And that to be honest is the bulk of it. And I know that people are, I'm not even going to look at the comments as I'm saying this. People aren't going to like it. They're not going to agree with it. But the reality is the Steelers operate with a sense of morality, with a sense of humility, and they put their people above everything else. Ben is one of their people. Ben, keep in mind, had to take a pay cut this season for them to get whatever festering dung heap of a team they have right now on the field. They'd be even worse if Ben didn't take a pay cut, okay? They took a pay cut. He took a pay cut really to stay on the team. It would have been more painful for them to cut him in the offseason. That would have hurt both of them a lot more. But Ben is the guy that has to accept that offer. He has to take that, in the pocketbook as well as the reputation in order for him to stay for this season, which he was contracted to do to begin with. He didn't have to do that for himself. He didn't have to do that for the team. The team needed him to do it though, and he did. They're not benching him after 4 games. Okay. They're just not. They are not going to have him go out like that. I don't think they did Terry Bradshaw all that bad. And look how that turned out. What are they going on, a 40-year feud now? They're not going to do that with Ben Roethlisberger. Arguably one of the most successful players in team history, the best quarterback, best offensive player in team history, my opinion, the second best player in team history behind Joe Green. They're not going to have him go out negatively. If that means that this team doesn't get to experience all the glory of Mason Rudolph over 2/3 of a season, then I'm sorry, Steelers fans. Mason's just going to have to wait until next year, okay? They're not going to bench him. He has played terribly. I have no doubt in my mind they're not going to win much with him, but this is why I said I don't think this team is going to win much this year. Ben doesn't have a whole lot left. They're not helping him at all. At some point, though, Najee Harris might crack the 100-yard mark. He climbed all the way up to 62 this game. I want to point that out. 4.1 yards per carry, which is a career high for him. 1 touchdown ties a career high for him. They were hoping to get a lot more out of their running game than they have. And I think we're seeing steps in the right direction on those lines. Okay. So Ben can be washed up, rinsed off, Russian bathed, whatever it is. They're not going to take him out. They're going to try to find ways to win with him because truthfully too, I don't think that Ben is going to be any worse than what Mason Rudolph would be. I really don't.
Wow.
And Rudolph has earned that. He's earned that reputation. He's been out there. He's not an unknown commodity. He's got a lot of starts under his belt. He's sucked and he's been okay. Okay. Ben can probably, turn back the scales of time here and figure out how to figure a way to get to okay. I don't think that's impossible. They'll do what they need to do overall, but they're not taking Ben out of the game.
So this ends with Ben getting hurt. So that's what it sounds like. It sounds like with Ben taking an injury and they're slow walking him back, where it's an injury where they're just pushing it further along down the road where they're saying, well, he might not be back. Well, he's questionable. Oh, he didn't practice. And they keep pushing it down the road, and it kind of just stops Ben Roethlisberger from playing this year. Let's
At
speak to
some point, that
Grayson.
had to happen.
Yes,
You
I
weren't
mean,
going to
yeah,
get like you look at Jerome Bettis, for example. Jerome Bettis, because they won the Super Bowl that was played in Detroit, and Jerome Bettis is from Detroit. Everybody knows that. The fact that they won the Super Bowl, one of the worst played Super Bowls in history, the fact they won that game completely masked over the fact that Jerome Bettis choked at the 2-yard line in the divisional playoffs, a game they should not have won in a lot of ways because of that fumble. He would have been dogged for the rest of his career. They bailed him out. They saved him. Steelers fans are the only ones that really talk about that play anymore. It's usually because somebody knows the guy who had the heart attack in Permanis or whatever when the play happened. Legacy is important to Pittsburgh. They're not going to let Ben Roethlisberger have a bad one. He can have a bad season. Jerome Bettis didn't do a thing in 2005, yet he was the first one running out of the tunnel because he was the captain or whatever. No, he was the veteran leader. You want that around. You want to be able to honor that. You want to be able to sacrifice and play for that. But if that's the best player you have, you're in real trouble, and that's where the Steelers are today.
but let me ask you from this direction. And Grayson Brown wrote, and I disagree a little bit with what Grayson is saying. I'd be hard pressed to believe Ben gets benched. I agree there. I don't think he's going to get benched. I think Ben will have to get hurt to no longer play.
Ben's going to get killed.
And
the
so
way he did.
and the way this offensive line has him getting hits, it could happen. Not wishing it on him, but it could happen. I was the only one who believed he should have been gone in 2018. The loyalty of Ben is setting back the franchise 3+ years, unfortunately. I'm not sure of that statement. I just think at some point in time, you come to a crossroads in an organization. You've had a franchise player for 18 years. At some point in time, it ends and there is a transition. There's no such thing as a succession plan in the National Football League. The succession plan, again, like we talked about last week, is you lose, you draft a quarterback high in the first round, and hopefully that quarterback plays very well. So I'm not sure if the loyalty to Ben is setting the franchise back 3+ years, but to get to the point that Grayson is making is, when does Ben become selfish in this? When does Ben become selfish in this? When he realizes at some point that he can't do it, right? And that it might be best for the organization for Haskins and or Rudolph to play, to have that evaluation continue to see what the organization will do next year, because there's no way Ben returns next year. So at what point in time, does Ben have to take a step back, put his ego aside and say, look, I need to sit for the betterment of the organization so they can make an evaluation on what they want to do moving forward for the quarterback position.
If you want my opinion, start back in 2018, which is what the original comment was suggesting. The Steelers shouldn't have continued to restructure his contract and give him an extension. If they didn't want him, they shouldn't have signed him. It's not Ben who did that. It was the team. They wanted to create cap space because, and Steelers fans hate this theory because it makes no sense to them for some reason. The Steelers tried to go all in. The proverbial all-in thing, which is always the natural transition from Pirates fans to Steelers fans. They think football operates that way. The Steelers spent to the cap. They tagged Bud Dupree. They put all their chips on the table last year. Okay. They tried to go all in for a Super Bowl last year. It was the best they could have done. And frankly, if you looked at that defense through the first 4 or 5 games, they probably make something happen. But the defense fell apart. The offense couldn't hold it up. It didn't work. That's football. 31 teams lose the Super Bowl every year. It's not anything that the Steelers failed at necessarily. They did all they could with what they had. That kicked Ben's money into this year. To do what they did to lower the cap for this season, as well as take on a charge for next year, they had to get Ben to agree to the pay cut, the restructured deal with the void years. It was what they had to do. So, in other words, the price they paid trying to go all in last year, which you're not going to hear any Steelers fans say that they don't want to go all in. We should go for a Super Bowl. The problem is, as it was raised in the comments earlier too, who would you replace Ben with right now? Phillip Rivers? There isn't a quarterback who's good out anywhere. You can't just acquire a good quarterback. You're saying there is no sorry, I stumped on the word. There is no transition plan for a quarterback in the NFL. I agree with that. A lot of it is luck. And the rest of it is timing and opportunity. Week 4 is not the time to go find a quarterback. You're not going to be able to do that. So you got to dance with who you brought. And that's really where the Steelers are. If you want to see Mason Rudolph, if you really need more evaluation on Mason Rudolph, you're going to have to bench Ben to get it, because Ben took less money to come back here to play his last season, under which, once again, he had a signed contract to play. People that try to put this on Ben and his selfishness, in what way is he being selfish? He's not even getting paid what he was scheduled to make. If anything, he sacrificed something to come back. Now, I hope he doesn't do us any more favors, but for now, what you have is a bad quarterback who doesn't have any reason to go away anytime soon, and he's not going to. So this is what you've got. At the same time, though, are you preparing for a Super Bowl run with this team? The game today wasn't as much as the defense was horrible today. We haven't seen them play that undisciplined in a long time. They exposed the entire secondary. We can now officially start to say that Minkah Fitzpatrick is not having a good season, because that, to me, is the third game in a row he hasn't played very well. I get that they threw a flag and he blocked a kick. He's not getting paid to block kicks. He's getting paid to play free safety and make plays in the game, and he flat out isn't doing that. So you've got other problems here other than just Ben, although Ben is a fair and justified problem.
Yeah, they're in a weird way, because even if you look at their offense from the perspective of you have to cater it towards the defense, where you try to possess the ball more, you try to shorten the game, you try to keep scores low, to try to play the time of possession and kind of move the sticks and not necessarily try to throw it a ton and get big explosive plays to keep the score down. The defense is not playing well. You have the Alualu injury. Who knows when Tua is going to come back? And so they're not what they were. And TJ Watt did not play well today. He looked like a guy
one
that
of his worst
was,
games in a while.
He looked like he was really trying to try to give the Joe College effort, so to speak, going back home to Wisconsin, but he did not look right. And I'm just wondering if anybody can comment on the live chat. I think that TJ Watt gets credited for a sack late in the game where he touched down Aaron Rodgers behind the line of scrimmage. But I'm not sure of that. If anybody knows, I was just wondering if he got a sack for that. I was like, wow, that's a garbage sack.
Did he celebrate the way he did on the trip that didn't get called?
No, he didn't. No. So Double H responded. He was stat padding. He was stat padding in the game. Well,
they snap the ball, you play the game. I have no problem.
Yeah, he touched him down. Yeah, it is.
I don't have. Yeah, he got credit with 2 sacks today. This is without question the worst 2-sack performance I have ever seen of a defensive
It's pretty
player.
bad.
He didn't do a thing today.
And the funny thing is, and I want to thank the person who shall never be named, who gave me the thought around, again, and we come back to it. What do you do well that they don't do well? And just right now, we go to it every single week.
Zero things.
They don't do
zero
anything,
things well.
They don't do anything well. And we can complain as fans about the missed offsides call. Ben missing some passes and some opportunities. I thought the offense looked a little bit better. I think it's incremental. I think it's baby steps, but I just don't think right now this team is not going to compete for the playoffs. I think we all know that right now, because again, the division is very good. The AFC North is very good. Each team has 3 wins. That just is what it is. As you move forward, let's say, and the Steelers play who next? Denver. Who do they play after that? I think it's
Denver,
Seattle.
then Cleveland, Denver, Seattle, bye. And they're begging to get to the bye right now.
I'm trying to find some positive in this, and it's very difficult, because is there any positive if they lose the next 2 games but look better offensively? What does this team need to? I'm trying to find some positive, because without even looking at Denver, I think they're going to lose. This is a team that can't score points. You're going up against Vic Fangio. I don't want to jump in front of the bus, too early and talk about next week against Denver. They're going up against a Fangio defense. They might play Drew
better than talking about this week.
But I'm just trying to. As Double H would say in the comments, playoffs. I've heard of such wonders in legend and old lore.
Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs.
I don't.
I get the feeling that's going to be the title of next week's show. After a 27-6 loss to the Broncos, playoffs.
It's just.
You kidding me?
I think the only
Playoffs?
positive I think the next 4 of the next 5 are at home, right? I mean, that might be the positive. At least they don't have to
Care.
get on a plane.
No, they haven't won a game at home yet. They haven't won a game at home in 10 months. They're
But I'm
not a good
trying to
home team
I'm
anymore.
trying to scratch out that positive. At least they don't this bad offense doesn't have to go on the road and deal with crowd noise.
If you want a positive, I think the offensive line played better today than
I
they
did.
have.
I thought that.
And granted, that bar is set pretty low, but it's improvement. And I've said that all season long. The main thing you're going to see with them is they're going to suck at the beginning because they're really young. They don't know what they're doing. Their left tackle blocks like a tight end, which we saw several times a day too. But as a unit, they played a lot better today than they have. That's why they were successful running the ball. A running back had over 4 yards a carry. When's the last time that happened? Bell? They haven't had anybody be able to run the ball pretty. I thought Najee looked pretty good. The game got away from him. He could have been more of a factor if it was, perhaps a tighter game. And they started throwing past the sticks on fourth down every now and again. Maybe that'll help.
Okay. Speak Neil. Talk me off the bridge. And I think you were right. I think you were right on Twitter when you posted that they've run 5 fourth down plays and every pass has been behind the sticks. I mean, I know that the pass protection is inconsistent, spotty, bad, whatever you want to say.
Then fine, you're going for it on fourth down. You can't blame your offensive line for not being able to do anything if you're going for it on fourth down. Punt then, kick the field goal. You can't half-ass that decision. Okay, the first one. Let's get this straight right now. That was not a play call. The first one that he swung out to Harris in the flat, that was no different than last week against Cincinnati. It was the same thing. He sees the blitz coming and decides to dump it off way short of the sticks. There's no blocking out there, okay? It was not a design play. There are guys running routes. Ben didn't look at them at all because immediately his reaction is get the ball, go short. They're coming in. That's where I'm designed to go with the ball. Last week, I passively accused him of not knowing the down. And I'm not even 100% sure I'm not right about that. The next step to this, frankly, is he doesn't want to hold on to the ball. If anybody happened to watch the Vikings-Browns game, at the end of that, hope is fading away for the Vikings, 4th and 6 or something like that. Kirk Cousins drops back. He's not even done with his drop, and he's getting crushed by Clowney and Garrett at the same time. He has nowhere to go. He steps up. As he's going down and doesn't have a receiver anywhere, he vainly just kind of throws the ball forward. Really kind of pathetic and stupid looking, but that's your mindset on fourth down as a quarterback. You do not get sacked on fourth down. You have to get rid of the ball. You have to throw it somewhere. Cousins had no chance of any kind on that play. Ben didn't even give the play that. And he wasn't even pressured when he got rid of the ball. He dumped it off immediately. That's not the play call. Okay. The play call had to go down the field a little bit. The other fourth down, I forget what happened on that. He threw it short, I think, to Washington. Washington might have gotten back to the line of scrimmage. Whatever it was, he got rid of the ball immediately. I don't know what else there is to describe that. I'm also not somebody that's going to say every time a guy has to catch the ball past the sticks on fourth down. That's a requirement. That's not the case. You have really athletic guys. You get them to them short, and there's a lot of room on a football field that you can get north and go forward, unless you're Deontay Johnson, of course, whatever the hell it is that he did on that third down, or maybe it was fourth down. Not a good situation for the Steelers receivers once again today. But the point is, Ben can deliver the ball. Ben can sit in the pocket. He's done it. He just doesn't for some reason on fourth down. And I think somebody tell me if I'm wrong. I'm not going to go back and count it. I'm not in the mood. But I think they're like 0 for 5 on fourth downs. They haven't run once. They've thrown 5 times. I think 4 of the 5 at least have been behind the line of scrimmage when he threw it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know what you're going to do with that every time, but we know what they're going to do the next fourth down that they run into. And I'm gonna bet it's going to be in the third quarter when they're down 17 points to Denver next week.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 0 for 5, but I think it's pretty much, even if it's not 5 and it's 5 throws behind the line, so it's about that. It feels like that.
Yeah, I'm not far off. If that's not the right
off
number, it's just it's amazing that these aren't the play calls. Like it wasn't a screen pass. There's nobody out with Najee. Najee is swinging out. He's one-on-one with a cornerback. Okay, that's a pretty athletic guy. And Jair Alexander can tackle. He's really good. Najee's not getting past that guy in the open field very often. Not from that spot. Not after he turns to catch the ball. Not with the head of steam. There's nobody else supporting his running effort there, and the entire linebacking crew is coming down from the middle of the field. He's not going to get there. There's no way without any help at all. If they want Najee Harris in space, great. Give him some help. Set him up a screen. Don't do what you're doing. It's because he's not doing it. That's the outlet. That's the check down. If this guy's coming here, throw over here because you got one-on-one on this side, Najee Harris isn't going to make NFL cornerbacks miss in space. Okay? It's not going to happen.
I like Mr. Tummy's perspective. The positive is you get to evaluate talent and see who to keep next year, because I think this is, like we've said so often ad nauseum, that this is a 3-year plan. And I think it's what they checked off this year is they checked off the running game. You got the tight end, you got the running back. Next year, you might get an interior offensive lineman drafted in the first round with a wide receiver that's actually a burner. Then next year it might be, well, obviously it's going to be a quarterback too. You're going to try to identify a quarterback
pretty high on the list.
Pretty high on the list in the next several drafts. So you're going to identify a quarterback. Absolutely,
one of them is going to work.
It's so this is going to be a plan and a puzzle piece. That they start putting the pieces together. It would have gone over much better for Steeler fans, again, if it was not sexy tanking. When you put Ben Roethlisberger on the face of it, it implies, particularly because you started the season last year 11-0, that you're competing for a championship. You also go out and you get Schobert, who I think looked better in this game today. I thought you saw some of the things that they liked about Schobert, particularly in coverage. You go out and you get, you sign TJ Watt to the big deal. You go out, get Schobert. You do some things in free agency. So you give the guys that you're really trying to compete, but it is what it is. I don't think you see the Steelers out there saying anything different. They're just saying the standard, we're just trying to get better game by game, so on and so forth, yada, yada, yada. But before we get out of here, let me give you my pet peeves. And you can speak to this, Neil, being an accredited member of the media. Here's one of my biggest pet peeves is media guys that apologize for players and who advocate for players. That's one of my biggest issues. And I see you laughing.
I'm trying to hide.
And I see you laughing.
I think you could probably accuse all of us for that.
No, you're not as bad as some.
Some might hide it differently, but rant away. I'm not stepping in.
Some are really bad. Now, I'm not going to say the individual's name, but there was a throw that Ben made early in the game, and if you follow my Twitter handle or Twitter thread, you saw my comment, and they wrote, "See, I told you." Ben can still throw the deep ball. And I'm thinking to myself,
the third play of the game. My dad could make that throw in the flag football game in the backyard. The first throw of the game too. It's later on that's the worry.
I think to myself, okay, aren't you a journalist? Like, are you his PR guy? Like, I don't get it. Like, at this point, you have access to him. The platform that the writer writes for has access to him. You don't have to necessarily fight for access. He's going to talk to you at some point. He might not give you everything, but I just don't understand it. That's absolutely terrible. And when I read it, what it does for me as a guy who particularly pays for the content is I feel cheated as a customer. I feel like I'm not going to get truthful stuff because you are hiding stuff for access, or you're not telling me the real story. Like, I don't necessarily care about his feelings. I'm not paying for you to maintain your relationship with the player. I'm paying to get information that I might not get because you have access to the player. I mean, I don't understand that. That's just one of my pet peeves is media guys that make apologies for players and they advocate for players. There's another media person that does it. I think I forget her name. She works for ESPN. I forget her name. Um,
Works
I forget.
for NFL, you mean, right?
Nah, I think she works for the. I think she works for ESPN. She's
Oh,
the,
are you talking about Brooke?
no, not Brooke. I think she's an Indian American.
You're talking about
Um,
Aditi. She works for NFL
yes.
Network.
Oh, she works for. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, sometimes I'm just
Right.
like, yeah. Okay, next. I just can't. I can't. Sometimes I just can't take it seriously because I'm like,
You shouldn't.
I'm like, oh, brother, why you don't like the player's grown up? Like, it's a big guy. Like, he's played 18 years. He's made a lot of money. I mean, is his ego that fragile? I mean, he's just, it is what it is. Can we just be
It's.
honest with us?
I think that's a good rant. I don't think. See, okay, this is what I'm going to rant about, and it's connected. I'm gonna segue from yours into my point. On the surface, I can't disagree with what you said. Behind that curtain, while I'm not credentialed now, I know those people. I know how the operation works. There's a lot they're not allowed to tell you. They know a lot about a lot of things. Now, if you want to say because of your own, educated or otherwise opinion that Ben Roethlisberger can still throw the deep ball, yes, okay, fine, you're right. He can still throw the ball 40 yards down the field. I really don't think that's the point people are making as far as Ben can't throw anymore. But
Exactly.
if you're going to get that jacked up over the first throw of the game in which he lobs a teardrop in single coverage, fine. You win that point. Let's see where he is after he throws the ball 40 times. You see him in the fourth quarter? He was dragging. He can't throw the
Yes.
ball that much. He's now thrown 98 times in 2 weeks. He's not going to be able to throw next week. Bet heavily on Denver, by the way. That said, yes, those kinds of things are annoying. I am probably just as guilty, if not 10 times as guilty of that as anybody. I totally understand why some people will get into that. What I try to do is preface what I'm saying as this is my opinion. This is not anything that I'm gathering from anywhere else. There's a difference. Okay. Sometimes in the media, you don't really have that established. And people think that you are always on the job when you're making your opinion known. I'm using that to segue into a bit of news that hopefully you did not hear leading into the game, in that Jason La Canfora of CBS Sports talked to people who are close to the Rooney family and in some twisted way kind of suggested that if they were going to make a move at quarterback, it'd be closer to the bye week than right now. That's a pet peeve of mine as somebody in the media, because reading between the lines, I know exactly how that conversation most likely went down between the reporter and the source. Hey, if they made a move, they'd probably do it closer to the bye, right? Yeah, probably. Okay, thanks. That turns into source confirms if the Steelers consider a move, it'll be at the bye. It's not what they said. They're not considering a move. There's no reason to imply that they are, and you don't have the sources to back that up. When people, readers such as our fine listeners here, the ones commenting here, when they hear stuff like that, they find out that when Ben doesn't get benched, they thought that he was lying. He just made it up. So now that I'm in the media, I'm considered to be a liar because I don't run bullshit like that. It's a ridiculous comment. It's a ridiculous assertion. And that's coming from a nobody in the grand scheme of anything. I'm just telling you now, sources don't talk about those kinds of things. The people that make those decisions do not tell that off the record or on, anonymous or otherwise, to Jason La Canfora. They don't do that. Yet he will misrepresent the information that he's getting constantly and lead people to believe that something that he is suggesting could happen. There's the big word. Remember that word, could happen. That usually means somebody said, sure, it could happen. Tell me this. Let me give you a scenario. What if this happened? Would they do this? Yeah, I suppose if that happened.
Yeah.
That turns into they could do this. People, a lot of things could happen, okay? I could wake up with hair again tomorrow. It could happen. I can't rule it out. I'm not betting on it. I'm not going to go report it that it could happen because it's not a scenario that's plausible. It shouldn't be worth your time to listen to that crap. And it bothers me when good outlets get lumped into that. Mark, I said the wrong word. Lance, I know exactly who you're talking about. And I know that that kind of thing
Yes, it's him.
bothers you. And I know that that reporter does that a lot. I don't have an issue with that myself. He's engaging in conversation. I'm perfectly fine with journalists doing that. I let my people do it. I do it all the time ad nauseum, or people probably hate me because
You don't
of
do
it.
it like that, though.
I do other things that are probably just as annoying.
That particular person has a set of Ben Palms on. I mean, he's
Yes, yes.
he
There,
has been.
there are some in the media that want to line up to be the Ben autobiography ghostwriter. Okay, let's put it
Yes,
that way.
yes, yes.
They want to line up to be the guy that NFL Network talks to 10 years down the line about the glory years of Ben Roethlisberger. They fight over that kind of thing. There weren't
Yeah.
any. Keep in mind, there weren't any in the James Harrison football life. Did anybody watch that? By the way, we didn't even talk about that. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, I didn't watch. I have
Absolutely
it on
love
my.
that.
I have it
They
on
didn't
my
have a local
DVR.
reporter. I don't think they had a local reporter at all on that. And beyond that, everybody in Pittsburgh media that covers the Steelers wants to be Ed Bichette. Ed Bichette is the king. He's the guy that gets all of those national spots. He's the guy that everybody turns to. He's the Hall of Fame voter. He's in the Hall of Fame himself. Ed Bichette is the greatest guy in the world, by the way. I love Ed Bichette. Like, he's hilarious. The cranky old guy on Twitter thing is brilliant.
And the guy I'm talking about wasn't Ed Bouchette.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
It was not. It was not Ed Bouchette.
People all want to do that, so they want to get in good with the players. They want to be able to lay good things out. It's not even as nefarious as that. You know, it's not like he has a real hardened agenda. Some of them aren't all that smart either. Okay, I'll just be honest with you. They're not thinking that far ahead on those kinds of things, but they do want to position themselves to help market their experience, their knowledge for it. Some of them just kind of sound like player homers, you know, and most of them, what they'll tell you, and this is the old cliche among journalists, I don't root for teams, but I do root for the players. You know, I hope they do well. It's like, okay, that's kind of the same thing. All right. I get that. I understand that because for me, it's Cam Hayward. I absolutely love Cam Hayward. I have a relationship with Cam Hayward. He's a great guy. I will say that fully admitting I'm not being objective about it. And I don't really care that I'm not. He's a great guy. I really hope that he does well. I am absolutely cheering for him.
At least you would say that, though.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Thing.
I get why people would say that. Now, at the same time, if you want to say that, well, you know, Ben doesn't throw the ball deep anymore or whatever, anything like that, fine. It's not that he can't throw a football down the field. It's that it's not accurate. It isn't thrown particularly hard anymore. And it's gone. It's not the same Ben that we've seen. That's what people are talking about. He can stand in the pocket all day and launch a football at a high arc down the field. That's not what we mean by throwing it deep. He doesn't really do that very well anymore. Sorry.
Yeah, he's just not a good player. But we're going to go ahead and conclude the show, and we're going to let you guys watch the other thing that I have a pet peeve about, but that's another team. Let me just say this real quick, and this is about another team. I don't care why Brady and Belichick broke up. I don't care. I just know they beat the living crap out of the Steelers regularly. That's the only thing I care about.
They loved each other in those nights. I remember seeing them celebrate all the time.
I don't care anything about that. I watched them raise 6 banners. Hell, the relationship worked. They got divorced. Whatever, dude. Like
to whatever degree I cared about it, it was over when they did it 18 months ago.
I celebrated when he went to Tampa Bay. I was like, well, at least they
I'll watch it
after
Steelers, he breaks the record. That's my plan. I'm going to turn it on after he breaks the record.
You know, it's just whatever.
You know, hey, you want to know something funny, Lance? I don't even know what record he's breaking. Which one is it? Touchdowns?
All
yards?
of them.
All of them.
I mean, it's just all of the above. A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G. I mean, hell, the man got 7 Super Bowl rings.
Hit 400 touchdowns today, or broke Dan Marino's mark, or something. Because everybody cared about that.
And you better not think, if you're a Steeler fan and you think that Ben Roethlisberger was better than Dan Marino, you better wake up and think twice.
Marino,
not better than Marino.
Marino was ahead of his time. If they protected quarterbacks back then the way they do now, Marino would have slaughtered everything.
Southside guy.
He still did.
And he did.
But with that, listeners, until he's 44 years old to break a record of his.
But before we get out of here, is there anything you want to steer fans to?
No, I'm going to guess you don't really want to look at the Steelers side a whole lot, but we're going to talk about Brady breaking records on Bucks and Pats if you guys
A,
want to dig
B,
into
C, and D.
that.
The most important one being W's in championships.
Yeah,
Those are the ones he's going to
team that
continue to
just won
break.
one, another team that won a lot.
Jeez, I mean, anyway, but we're going to go ahead and conclude the show, listeners. Thank you for chiming in. Hey, man, it's rough, but stay the course. Don't find yourself in the whole Twitter rants. Oh yeah, I'm a Steeler fan. I'm ride or die. I'm going to continue to be a Steeler fan. All they lose, and you're challenging people.
I'm mad, but I'm a Steelers fan.
You know, I'm mad. You're
you
challenging
can't be
people.
mad if you're a Steelers
you can't
fan.
Be mad.
Yes,
like,
I can.
Yeah, like don't find yourself into that business. Look,
put on
you're
a movie,
a fan.
Go to bed. Okay,
you're a fan. They're losing. We're fans. Yeah. It happens, man. It just happens. This is the course of the season. It happens. But with
jump on the Trey Lance bandwagon with me. You'll be happy you did.
Well, my wife's a little upset too because they lost today as well. She particularly hates when the Niners lose to the Seahawks. Yes, my wife's a San Francisco fan. She's from San Francisco. So don't say anything about that. I'm a Steeler fan. Our house has 11 championships. Beat that. Beat that. Anyway, but I'm out of here. We're out of here. And thank you guys for checking out the New Standard. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.